I mean, talking about Spanish, the Spanish that they speak in Uruguay is also like distinct, right? I think some people compare it to the Spanish in Argentina and how there's some similarities there. But in comparison to, like, let's say the rest of Latin America, they say a lot of things differently. The pronunciation is different. Do you feel like now when you speak Spanish, it's like super Uruguayan Spanish?
Yes and no. Like the way I pronounce things is definitely the local way now. I personally, even in English, I'm not a huge slang user. So in that way, like I understand it when other people use it, but I don't really, it's not part of my everyday vocabulary. So I will always sound not Uruguayan for that reason. In the way I form sentences will always be a little bit different. But it's, like I said, the same in English. But I do like to think of Uruguayan Spanish as similar to Australian English. Like, yes, it's English, but if you go there and you're not familiar with Australian culture, it's still different. Like, you can probably understand almost everything people are saying, but then you'll meet some guy from the countryside and you'll really have to focus because they speak too fast and they don't really enunciate right. And I find the same here. Like, women or younger people tend to be easier, but a man from like the interior, which is like, anywhere that's not along the coast or in the big city, they speak in a way that's definitely like, oh, wow, I still have to maybe focus a little bit more because the mouth kind of doesn't really open wide when they're talking. And that makes it a lot harder. But other than that, I feel like it's, yeah, pretty easy to understand.
I mean, that's interesting that you say that it's easier to understand like women than guys, because I have the same experience in Colombia. Like it's easier for me to understand girls when they speak. It sounds like, it just feels like they, like you said, like maybe open their mouth more, like they're more expressive with their words, where guys tend to be like a little bit more monotone and just kind of like not mumble, but like just not articulate sounds a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's that articulation. And I've heard from locals here that, so if you're thinking that the Colombian men are monotone, here it's 10 times worse, because people will describe Colombian Spanish as having a little bit more tones, which is what we're more familiar with in English. Whereas in Uruguay, they speak very kind of same tonal, like there's not a lot of variation, which is, again, it's just a difference. It's not like, it depends on what you're used to.
Sure.
And when I was learning Spanish in Australia, it was not anything specific, but it was like generic South American Spanish. It wasn't Spain, but it definitely wasn't like Rio de la Plata Spanish. So coming here, switching from tú to vos, the conjugations are different. And it was definitely like a slap in the face of, oh, like I really thought I had a basic understanding of Spanish. Then it was like having to undo a lot of the learning I had previously done, and then kind of felt like starting all over. But
well, like there's so many different variations of Spanish, right? Like so many different countries that have it as an official language. And like there are slang in every country, like in English as well. Australian slang is different than Canadian slang. I remember like people like to make things sound cute is what I noticed in Australia. Like it's not a mosquito, it's a mozzie, like it's not a present, it's a prezi. It's not Christmas, it's Chrissy. Like they have all like those kinds of things, and it sounds
shortening
cute.
Words.
Yeah, like shortening words, but it's a part of the local like dialect. Like you're actually changing words or using different words too, right? Like we have rednecks, you have bogans, like that kind of stuff, and you see that in Spanish, and it makes sense that there's slang. But then there's also an element of like changing grammar or changing pronunciation. And then I think that is harder. Anyone can just learn slang, but then when it comes to like pronouncing letters in a very different way or not pronouncing certain letters, then it's like it becomes harder to communicate, I think, or harder to imitate even. Like, okay, I'm used to neutral, like whatever standard Spanish is, and now I gotta like change the way that I pronounce this or use like vos, like you were saying, where it's a completely different like conjugation. And so I think that it sounds like Uruguay has like a bit of both. Like it has the slang and the different words, but then it also has this different grammar and different pronunciation. Like what are some of the differences between the Spanish there and like, let's say like neutral standard academic Spanish, whatever that is?
That's a very good question. I think like something you use every day is obviously like the second person. So switching the way you'd use voceo instead of tú, the conjugation. So like tenés, thus it's like it sounds very similar, but the accent is on the vowel at like the end of the word.
Okay. So that's a singular version of you in an informal setting, right? Or is it formal?
Yes, informal. So, but you use it for everyone. Like formal isn't really used so much here. What else?
I mean, there's the
in terms of
the sh sound.
yes. So the double L sound, but also the YA sound are very similar. It's like like there's a delivery service, like instead of Uber Eats, they have pedidos ya, but it's not ya. Like, so if you were to be looking at like Mexican Spanish, it's more of a ya sound, but here it's sha, almost like the SH sound in English, which is very similar to like keys. You wouldn't say llaves, you'd say chaves. So it's a very sh sound, or lluvia, yo me llamo Madeline. And even the word like Uruguayan, you'd say like Uruguayan, but you don't really pronounce the G in the middle so much. It's not like Uruguayan, it's like Uruguayan. So it's like they kind of skip letters in certain places, and there's a lot of pronunciation things that over time, you slowly build on it. And like, I guess similar to what you were saying about Australian English with trying to make things sound cuter, they kind of have a similar thing here with, and maybe this is all Spanish, I don't know, maybe it's just taken me a while to get used to, but instead of saying like hola, it's a lot of like olis.
Oh.
Like they like change it to like little I's and S's, and it's like a cuter way of saying it. So maybe that doesn't exist in Colombia, I don't know.
I've never heard that. I've heard besi from vecino, like from neighbor. You go, hola besi.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
cute version.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a strictly Uruguayan thing, because I never got to this level of understanding in generic Spanish. Like I said, I had very like maybe B1, B2 level of like regular South American Spanish, whatever the hell that means. I had teachers from different countries when I was in Australia. But yeah, here it's a very specific way. I feel like if you know a decent amount of any Spanish and you come to Uruguay, you'll be able to communicate just fine. Like they're very good here at understanding other Spanishes, maybe more so than if you were to go to Spain, for example, because I feel like growing up here, again, maybe similar to growing up in Australia, you're consuming media from all the Spanish-speaking countries. There are very few shows other than like maybe game shows and the news that are filmed in Uruguay. There's a couple movies and TV shows filmed in Argentina, so that'll have a very similar Spanish, but otherwise a lot of the movies are filmed in Mexico or in Spain. So they're very good at understanding different cultures and different slangs and different accents. But yeah, the way the locals speak is very specific still.
Well, like they also like they dub movies in Spanish, obviously, but a lot of times they have like a European Spanish dub and a Latin American Spanish dub. And I've heard that like 90% of those voice actors are Mexican. And so like Latin people, if they're watching dubbed movies, will be hearing Mexican Spanish. And so they become more used to it.
A lot of the time.
I also think Mexican Spanish, and I think generic Colombian Spanish, like let's say Bogota, like it changes depending where you're at. Of course, if you're on the coast, it's very different, and Medellin is very different. But let's say like Bogota Spanish and Mexican Spanish, I think are like some of the most neutral. For like if you wanted to learn a Spanish that was just like,
that makes sense.
Like in terms of the pronunciation, like it's not there's not a lot of they're pretty like, I don't know, it's like standard Spanish.
I also think they have a lot more of like a sing song, like the way they speak is a little bit more, I don't know, I think it sounds fun. It sounds more musical almost, whereas here it's very flat.